I am now recording, just so you know.
All right.
It's gonna be
I should probably record myself too, just in case.
yeah, just in case something goes wrong.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a pretty casual interview. Did you got the questions, so you know what's coming.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be any
I already
surprises.
forgot all of them, but
Yeah, don't worry. Whenever I do the same thing.
yeah.
But yeah, and then I'll do all of like the it's Chance at Charity, or not Chance at Charity, that's the old one. It's Ultra Charity. This is I'll do all that stuff in post.
Sure.
But so yeah, I guess we can just get right into the first set of questions. So, it's been a pretty crazy year for everyone, but I specifically want to know how the last year of ULTRAKILL development felt for you.
Too slow, honestly. It's that's not really a surprise. I don't think the fans, considering it takes quite a while for ULTRAKILL to get updates, but I always do want to try to improve the pace, but it's sort of difficult to, considering like the sort of how much content and how high people's expectations are at this point. So I kind of just take it as I can, and then that means it ends up being slow, which is unfortunate, and I wish I could be faster, but I really can't.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it is pretty nice, because all the people helping out with the development have been very, very good and helpful with the game, and we haven't really ran into like any big issues and stuff.
Yeah, and so over the past year, it's been the Greed and Clash updates, right?
Yeah, and Soul Survivor.
Yeah, and Soul Survivor. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I feel like those have all been pretty significant in my opinion, but that's just me. Especially with the quality of Greed.
Yeah, it definitely depends on who you ask, because a lot of people, just be like, oh, it took like 3/4 of a year to add 4 new levels.
Yeah.
And then some people are like, what the hell, I paid $20 for this game, why do I only have 15 levels or something? And
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, it's like it's kind of designed to be replayed.
Yeah, it really is. So out of I guess I want to put this in terms of just this last year this last year of development as well. But what of the last year, what was your favorite thing you've worked on?
And you mean like in terms of like my favorite of like the development process, or just like the final thing?
Just done? Anything you've worked on for ULTRAKILL.
Well, in terms of development, I guess I liked doing the P1 Soul Survival level, because that was just like I can do whatever the fuck I want in terms of difficulty without having to worry about it being accessible, or like having to worry about any kind of difficulty curve. But in terms of actual like final finished thing, I'm obviously very partial to Clash of the Bandicoot. Because it's a lot of people are mad about it because they're bad and they're molding and seeding and coping. But there's obviously flaws in it, but that's because it's a secret level in FPS, it's not gonna be the greatest platformer available.
Yeah, you definitely had me seething there for a while when I was trying to get some of those like more stupid runs that have no purpose going.
Good.
But yeah, and like I complained about it a lot, but I would always say like, oh, but it's just a secret level. It's like, it's fantastic. Of course, when you're pushing it to its limits, its cracks might start to show, but it's just one little fun secret level. And it's
definitely showing that I need to I need to pare things down a bit for the next secret level so that I don't spend another couple of months on a level that everyone hates.
Well, I loved it.
Thank you.
All right, and so I guess kind of going off of one funny little level that took months to implement. What idea of yours has been the most difficult to implement, or time consuming? Whatever makes a little more, whatever is easier to answer for you.
Well, it would definitely be Clash of the Bandicoot because I had to do a bunch of like. Not just because of the systems of like having to make an FPS like game system and engine and stuff just work in a platformer, but also having all these things be able to cross-pollinate because you're able to play every level as Clash as well. So it has to all the levels and like enemies and stuff have to function in both forms. And then there's a bunch of like stuff that nobody really notices that I spend way too much time on, like the music in the Clash level. It has like different phases which change between like there's 4 parts and they change between them like depending on how far in the level you are.
Oh.
So like when you're outside it's one song, and then when you go inside it changes to a different version, and then once you got the side-scrolling thing, it's a third version. And like for that, in order to make that seamless, because if you just change songs, then like it's gonna be really jarring when the song suddenly cuts into another song. So I had to start doing math and stuff for like, okay, well I have to count beats and measures to get the correct place to cut into the next song so that it feels smooth. And then obviously because I'm a fucking dumbass, the music that I made has like changing some of the songs, especially I think the first phase especially has like changing time signatures, so I had to start counting those as well.
Oh no.
It's just like a huge undertaking for this thing that no one even notices anyway.
I'll be the first to admit I never noticed that.
Yeah, that's a testament to how seamless it is, I guess.
Yeah, it's really good. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to go back and appreciate that now that I actually know about that. Wow.
Yeah, and I need to actually get around to uploading that song and all those phases on YouTube because I forgot.
It's exclusive to the game only for now.
Kind of like the seasonal themes. Yeah. Those are ones that I don't really want to upload anywhere because I think they're more special if they're just in the game for like a short period of time.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. So, going from the most annoying thing to the next. Is there anything in the game right now that you think needs like any improvements or polish or anything like that?
Yeah, actually right now we're starting to work on a sort of overhaul on the sort of framework of the enemies and stuff, because it's a huge mess, because it's like all the enemy code is based on like really old code that I made for just the one enemy, and sort of started to balloon and become really hard to maintain and update and stuff. So we're doing like a whole rework of that framework, and we're also, in terms of like, there's going to be a bunch of changes and stuff, because obviously that's probably the most common complaint, is that the AI is pretty dumb in the game right now. So we're also looking to improve that a bit, because I want to keep all the enemies very simple, so they're sort of, you can understand what they're doing even if you're not looking at them or anything, and you can sort of predict enemy behavior. So I do want to keep them simple, but we're improving, or at least trying to improve navigation and stuff, so that enemies will be able to jump up to like ledges and over gaps and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
So that hopefully melee enemies will be a bit more dangerous than they currently are. We already got like a sort of preliminary version of it working in the cyber grind, so that's good. But just having to sort of figure out how to make it feel natural and stuff will be difficult. And then there's just a lot of sort of small details that I need to put in terms of animation stuff to make the enemies feel a bit more alive and a bit less a video game code opponent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done there, but we're sort of aiming to have that done before Wrath, so we can have like one more fairly big update before we completely commit to having Wrath out next.
Okay, that's exciting. That's very exciting because yeah, I know I've heard my fair share of complaints from people about how simple the AI is, but I've never found it to be that much of a problem because.
Yeah, it's always been simple by design, but sort of I definitely understand the complaint. So
yeah,
for an example, the projectile enemies they don't really like the only really, because I'm not a very good programmer, so the only sort of thing I could do for like if you're outside of a projectile enemy's range is that they'll start just walking towards you.
Yeah.
So we'll try to sort of find a way to have the projectile enemies maybe scatter around a bit more and
interesting.
Just to give themselves a bit more space instead of all of them just bunching up into one spot.
Yeah, because if they're out of range and on a ledge or something, they'll all just kind of pile up in one spot and be even easier targets than normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, we'll see what we can figure out, and hopefully we'll find a balance where the game is still, where the enemies are still very simple, but that they're sort of
a little bit more dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing that.
Me too.
All right, so moving on. The most annoying bug you've had to deal with so far.
I think like the good old classic was the disappearing swords machine from the Prelude. That was one of those, because that was around from like before New Blood picked the game up. So I didn't have a QA team or anything yet, so I had to bug hunt that myself. So it was a huge issue, but we did. I think we fixed it before the first early access reveal version came out. So that was only in the demo, but that was very frustrating, which was sort of if you knock down the swords machine in the final phase of 03, then sometimes he would just disappear because he would end up, because of navigation stuff, he would end up warping onto like the roof or outside the room or something.
Oh god. What ended up being the cause of that?
Yeah, it was navigation mesh thing. So because the way Unity has it set up is, at least the default thing is pretty like, from what I understand, it really doesn't take height into consideration much. So if you have a enemy that's like at the bottom of some pit or whatever, and like there's like a floor that's like 100 meters above them, then if they're in the air and they suddenly try to navigate with the navigation mesh, it's kind of a total crapshoot of if it'll snap them down to the closer surface, or it'll just slap them 100 meters up into a higher navigation mesh, because it doesn't seem to care at all about height, just like horizontal and like horizontal distance and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty rough, especially without a QA team or anything.
Yeah, there's so much like annoyance with navigation mesh and stuff. So that's also one of the things that we wanna try to do with the enemy update, is have enemies move around with physics pushes instead of instead of just purely by navigation mesh, which would also mean that they can navigate on surface and stuff that don't have navigation meshes. Because currently you'll occasionally get enemies they'll just like get stuck on top of like a torch or something, and they can't move at all.
That's super interesting. Cool. That's enemies being able to move on things that aren't nav meshes is that'll be fun to see for sure.
Yeah, it'll probably just be like a very simple that if they're not a nav mesh, they'll just try to move towards the player and then get stuck if they can't move. But like at least it's better than just having them keep falling while staying still.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
That's right.
All right. So, media you've taken inspiration from, just in any of your work, not just specifically Ultra Kill, but just in general.
I don't think there's really like a. Well, I mean, I guess the good old reliable answer, like outside of just Ultra Kills, Devil May Cry inspiration and stuff, is God Hand is a pretty good general sort of inspiration for me, because it's, especially in terms of sound design, that was like a very learning experience for me, because God Hand is an unbelievably loud game. It is always clipping.
Yeah, it really is.
Yes, that was sort of like that was a big thing for Ultra Kill sound design. Was like, I wanna make the game feel as good as God Hand feels, so I'll make it fucking loud and everything's always clipping and distorting, and it worked.
Oh yeah, it definitely did. Any other media that's in that you take inspiration from?
It's mostly just whatever I'm like watching or reading or listening to or playing at the moment. It sort of seeps in, instead of, there isn't really a lot of sort of big overarching things outside of, like, God Hand and Devil May Cry and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's sort of just like whatever I was doing at the time is sort of like, if I'm making a song for a level, it usually ends up being influenced by whatever I was listening to around that time.
Yeah. All right, cool. Have any other game developers ever inspired you?
Oh, David Zemansky, when he made Dusk, I remember, because I was in game development school, and I already had started Ultra Kill. Like, I was just recently started on it, and then one of my classmates showed me Dusk, and it was like, oh, this is also like an FPS, and it's made like one guy. I was like, oh shit, that's cool. That's just like, this one guy managed to make this whole game. So that was just like a very big sort of motivational push for me to commit to Ultra Kill, because I was feeling that, if he can do it alone, then I can do this mostly alone as well.
Yeah.
And that was also, and then obviously because before, like, when I started Ultra Kill wasn't really a retro FPS. It has never really been a retro FPS. It's an FPS, and it looks retro, but it doesn't function like retro.
Yeah, it plays like its own beast.
Yeah, because it was just like, it started just from me like, oh, I wanna make a FPS Devil May Cry, and that was just like, and then I did the PS1 style, because I have to figure out an art style that's like really low budget and that's easy and fast to make. So there's different. We can do a pixel thing. Everyone does pixel things, and we can do like a Doom thing. It's like everyone does like Doom sprites and stuff. So I love PS1 graphics, so I'll just do a PS1 style thing. So it's sort of it was sort of accidentally stumbling into a resurgence of a genre.
Yeah.
And that was sort of when I found out about Dusk and I played Dusk. That was just like a big like, oh shit, this is like really fucking good. And that sort of got me to revisit Doom, like the original Doom, and started getting me into Blood and Shadow Warrior and stuff, like actually getting into all those retro FPS games. So that was like a big for me, is getting to play Dusk and finding out about Dusk and stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. The PS, that's funny that you kind of just stumbled into the PS1 aesthetic of it all, because that's probably what captured me most at first. I'm such a sucker for that era. I really am. It was in when I first like played the game and saw that PSX filter, I was like, oh, this is it. This is for me. This game was made for me.
Yeah, because it's very much the same kind of. It's very much the same kind of thing for me as well. Because it's obviously I grew up with a PlayStation 1, so I have a lot of love for that. So now that I'm growing up enough to be like a game developer, then other people who are like my age and stuff, who also grew up with the PlayStation 1, are grown up enough to like be nostalgic for that era. So I think it's sort of it's sort of, and also in general, that's also sort of ULTRAKILL and stuff. There's like a big PS1 horror scene currently and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of everyone's starting to come together to this style now. That's like the new hot thing, or was a couple of years ago at least.
Yeah, everyone's realizing,
sort of,
damn, PS1's kind of nice.
Yeah, and it's really just it's very funny, just like how lucky ULTRAKILL has been on just like just like these small decisions I made early on that ended up accidentally making ULTRAKILL fall into multiple currently resurgences of genres and old styles. And
yeah,
stuff.
It was kind of a perfect storm in terms of all the decisions, all the like aesthetics and stuff.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's one of those themes because right now it's like sort of you see a bunch of people starting to make retro FPSs and stuff because they're like, it's like popular right now, but then they don't really realize that it's going to take them a couple of years, and a couple of years from now they're going to be competing with 100 other retro FPSs that were also made because of the resurgence. So it's going to be sort of. It's when you know that there's a resurgence or a wave happening, then it's usually almost already too late to try to catch it. So even like it's still no, I'm not trying to discourage anyone who's doing that or wanting to do that, because if you do, then absolutely fucking go for it. But just like you can't rely on the wave, you do have to still have to push as hard and market your game as hard and try to make it as good as all other indie games are right now, instead of being able to rely on a wave happening.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're trying to like predict the future, because there's probably like there's sort of, because you could say there's a ImSim wave probably coming, and that's probably like you might still be able to catch on to that, and with like Gloomwood and Perpetuate and the System Shock remake and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's sort of, if you really want to catch a wave, you do have to actually try to predict what's happening in the future instead of doing what's being a wave right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially, because you'll just it's hard to, when that wave's already happening. If you've seen it, everyone else probably has too. So
yeah, exactly.
You either got to work really, really fast or already have something that you've been working on.
Yeah, or either that, or you'll just have to struggle like you just can't really, if you start to make a game at the point where a wave is already happening, then you can't like trust that the wave will still be happening by the time your game comes out. So you'll have to actually like you'll have to like commit to marketing and stuff just as hard as indie developers in general do have to.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be moving on to kind of more community related stuff for the next couple questions.
Sure.
I don't know if you've seen the schedule for ULTRACHARITY yet, but are there any runs you're particularly interested in seeing?
I'm interested in the Hive Mind thing because I have no idea what that is, but there's like 6 people playing at the same time.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. It's gonna be
great.
I'll be controlling the mouse, and whoever else wants to participate will be controlling my keyboard, and that's so that'll be a that'll be a time.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
But hopefully it doesn't go horribly, but we'll see.
We'll see. But yeah, that's something I'm interested in seeing. And I would say the Luna's blind speedrun, but honestly I don't want to see that because I want to play Luna myself.
I know, I have the same exact feelings as you. When Roby offered that, I was like, oh man, I want to be in this race so bad, but I need to do all of the host stuff. This sucks. Yeah, I'm super excited to see Luna 1-1 as well. That's gonna be awesome.
And I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of like, I want to see it because obviously I'm interested in the level, but then again I also don't want to watch the speed run because I want to just get my first experience when I actually get my hands on it and stuff.
Don't want anything spoiled. I'm gonna go ask Roby, hey yo, can I get that map early?
Yeah, probably.
All right. Favorite community discovered tech or bug?
I would say shotgun self-parrying and projectile boosting or whatever, but that's actually not community discovered because I accidentally discovered myself. That was when the game was already in the community's hands, but it was technically still discovered by me. So
yeah, can you
count.
Go into how you kind of found out about it?
It was pretty simple. I was playing 0-3 and I parried Sword Machine shotgun thing, and I was like, I was just like, oh yeah, you can do that, because obviously, they're just basically a bunch of small projectiles instead of being like a actual burst thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, wait a minute, but the player shotgun also uses those things, so maybe. Maybe, and then I just tried it and it worked. I was like, oh fuck.
Oh, that's awesome. Were the like little parry sparks in the game at that point yet?
Which parry sparks?
Like the little yellow flash.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, they were just like original. They weren't really sort of parry sparks. They were just like general attack warnings.
Oh, okay.
But now they've been sort of divided into parryable and unparryable and stuff. Because they started with the Sword Machine, I'm pretty sure, the flashes, because he has like a 4-pronged yellow flash for melee warnings and a 8-pronged orange flash for ranged warnings.
Oh, I never noticed that.
Yeah, it's pretty subtle, which is obviously why it didn't really work out, which is why it's just now I just use the yellow flash for basically whatever parryable attack and a new blue flash for anything that isn't parryable.
All right, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty funny way to find that. I parried.
But I guess in terms of like actually like community discovered, I really like ultra boosting. I think ultra boosting is really cool.
Yeah. I'm still not sure how it works, but I sure love it.
Yeah, the old version was just that you were getting hit by both explosions in the same frame.
I forgot that you changed it. That's right.
Yeah, now it's just like a manual override thing that if you do this and this and you're this within this like X distance away, then it'll like change the amount of force you get from the explosion.
Yeah. And just for anyone that doesn't know, ultra boosting is when you shoot a core eject with a malicious rail cannon when it's right next to you, and it gives you a huge boost of speed. Any surprising content that the community's made?
Oh, probably ULTRAKILL, the multiplayer mod is a pretty surprising one. Well, it's not surprising that people wanted to make it, but it's surprising that people actually got something like that functioning on at least some level. Yeah.
And I know it's been coming along pretty well these past couple weeks. So hopefully we'll get to see that relatively soon, because it's crazy. I never thought that I would see it, despite everyone asking for it all the time.
Yeah. And obviously I'm never gonna fucking make it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
And in terms of other surprising content, I think just the most surprising sort of thing is just how much content, like the community in general, like fan art and stuff, how much there is of it, considering it feels like it's like a much higher ratio than most other games get in terms of like player amount to amount of fan content and stuff.
It definitely seems like the fans of ULTRAKILL are very captured by the game, which is great.
Which is very good for me.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very, very, I think it's going to be very interesting when people will eventually find out how the game goes, or like where the game goes from here, and how the story will go from here. So, because I was always hoping that we would make a sort of deep impact on people, but I was never expecting it to already be doing that.
Yeah, halfway through.
Yeah.
4v2, never stood a chance.
Lucky me.
Yeah, yeah, really. Well, regardless, I'm super happy for you, and I'm super happy for all of the fans, because it's such a great experience.
Yes, it's very fun to be able to sort of that's the great thing about early access, is being able to sort of experience the sort of games development alongside a fan base instead of them just seeing it from a distance.
All right, so for our last question, because sadly the question list has come to an end, and this one's kind of for anyone looking to get into game design, I guess. But do you have a quote golden rule of game design?
I have a couple, but by far the most important one is the lesson I learned from Untraceable, which was my previous attempt at making a game. Which is the sort of TLDR version is that me and a classmate of mine, we were making a stealth game. And it was a very cool stealth game. It had a lot of interesting little systems and stuff, and cool mechanics and stuff. And then I got into I graduated from that school. I went into a different game design school because I didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do with my life. And then I met another classmate who was actually the only classmate at that new school who had actually done any game development before. So we were sort of immediately hitting it off because of that. And then I brought my laptop and my game to my school, and I was like, hey, check this out. This is the game I've been working on. And then he played it for 2 minutes or something. He died twice, and then he stopped playing, and he just looked at me. I was like, this isn't fun. And then it was just like, oh fuck, oh Jesus, because that was just a sudden lightning bolt going through my head. I never actually did anything to make the game fun. I never actually considered that, because I was just thinking that as long as the game's cool and interesting, that will make it fun. But you do actually have to design the fun into the game.
Yeah.
It's not enough that it's a game that's functional and interesting and stuff. You actually do. And then that was the sort of genesis of ULTRAKILL, was me sort of scrapping Untraceable and then going from the scratch, starting to go okay, well, what is fun? What is fun in video games? It's high speed, really over the top dumb violence, explosive big weapons, and lots of action and really high tension combat with high difficulty and stuff like that. And then I just started piling all of that into one game idea, and then I was like, well, then I'll make all the things that I think are fun into just one single game, and then that'll have to be fun. Or I'll just fucking give up or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
that's sort of the number one thing, is that you actually do have to, from the very start of your game development, you have to focus first and foremost on trying to make the game fun, trying to have the core gameplay loop of the very base actions that you do in the game, just make those functional, and then just try to make them feel good and make them feel fun. And then if you can do that, then you already have a good game, and you just have to coast out the rest of development, and it'll already be a good game, because the core gameplay that you spend 90% of the time doing is already good and fun.
Mm-hmm. Now that's a fantastic rule, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then a second one that I think is important is clipping is not a bad thing. Make your audio as loud as you fucking want. It really doesn't. Most people, the only people who really notice, unless it's badly made audio, the only people who really notice are audio engineers and stuff. Because for most people, it's just they're in the game, they're in the zone. They don't just really oh, this audio clip is quite distorted because it is slightly too many decibels loud. It's just Nah, that doesn't matter to people. It's just as long as it sort of feels right, then you can really just do whatever the fuck you want with sound.
Yeah. Most people hear the loud clipping and are like, damn, that's awesome. This sounds fucking crazy.
Yeah, as long as it's done in a good manner, because obviously if you there's been some games that have tried to do similar things, but that don't really work out, where it's like some of the sounds are just abrasive. They just hurt you in the ears because of the way they sort of it's just like too much doing too much on like the high frequencies and stuff, and it's like, nah, you gotta do it real fucking medium, bassy and low, and then you can make it loud.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Hakita, for your time. I'm very glad we did this pre-recorded now, because that went a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but we'll make it work.
Yep.
But yeah, thank you so much. That was a nice little chat. I definitely enjoyed it. Hopefully the people will enjoy it as well.
Maybe. I mean, it would be an unfortunate if people in the Ultra Charity stream didn't care about what I have to say about it.
Yeah, that wouldn't be great. But I guess before we go, where can people, follow you?
I have Twitter, that's @HakitaDev, dev short for developer. I have a Bandcamp with my music. It's heavenpiercer.bandcamp.com. I have a YouTube page. You can just look up Hakita or ULTRAKILL or something and find that. And then obviously you can go to devilmayquake.com to actually find the game itself.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Hakita, for your time. And
thank you. Always like doing some good interviews.
Let's hope the rest of Ultra Charity goes well.
Yep.